"Mrs. Anderson, please don't sign those papers." The words came out barely above a whisper, and when I looked up, the young bank teller's hands were trembling as she slid a printed document across the counter toward me. "Just give me 10 minutes. Please. I need to show you something about your nephew's financial advisor." Have you ever had that moment when your gut screams that something is terribly wrong, but everyone around you is telling you you're just being paranoid? That you're too old, too confused, too emotional to make good decisions? That Tuesday morning at First National Bank, I was 68 years old, recently widowed, and about to sign over my house to what I thought was a reputable financial planning firm. My nephew Marcus had been so helpful since George passed away 6 months earlier, always checking in, always offering advice. When he introduced me to his financial advisor, a polished man named Derek Chen, who promised to protect my assets and give me steady income for the rest of my life, it felt like a blessing. But this 26-year-old teller named Sophia, with her lip trembling and her eyes darting toward the bank manager's office, was looking at me like I was about to walk off a cliff. "I'm sorry, dear, but what are you talking about?" I kept my voice low, matching her tone. Something in her fear made me pay attention in a way I hadn't in months. "Mr. Chen came highly recommended. My nephew Marcus vouched for him personally." Sophia glanced over her shoulder, then leaned closer. "Mrs. Anderson, my shift ends in 8 minutes. Can you please just tell them you need to use the restroom? Meet me by the coffee shop next door. I have documents you need to see." Her voice cracked slightly. "Please. My mother lost everything to a scam like this 2 years ago. I know what I'm looking at." I felt my heart start to pound. The papers were spread in front of me, thick with legal language I'd been struggling to understand. Marcus was sitting in the waiting area, checking his phone, ready to drive me home afterward. Derek Chen had already left, saying his presence wasn't needed for the simple signing process. Everything had seemed so legitimate, so professional. But Sophia's hands wouldn't stop shaking, and that fear in her eyes, it was real. "I need to use the ladies' room," I announced, standing up more quickly than I'd moved in weeks. The grief counselor had said I was depressed, moving through life in slow motion, but something about this moment snapped me into focus. "Of course, Mrs. Anderson," the bank officer said, barely looking up from his computer. "Take your time. We'll be ready when you return." I could feel Marcus's eyes on me as I walked past, but I kept moving, kept my pace steady. The moment I was out the door, I turned left instead of right, heading for the coffee shop next door. Sophia was already there, having slipped out a side exit, a manila folder clutched to her chest. "Thank you," she breathed as I slid into the booth across from her. "Thank you for trusting me. I know I'm just some kid you don't know, but I couldn't watch this happen again." "What exactly am I about to see?" I asked, surprised at how calm my voice sounded when my pulse was racing. Sophia opened the folder. "3 days ago, when your nephew made the appointment for you, he also asked me to pull records for verification. Standard procedure. But when I ran Derek Chen's financial advisor license," she pushed a printed page toward me. "It expired 14 months ago. He's not legally allowed to operate as a financial advisor in this state." I stared at the document. There it was, in black and white. License status, expired. My hands started to shake. "There's more," Sophia continued, her voice getting stronger now that she was showing me the evidence. "I shouldn't have done this, and I could get fired, but I looked up your nephew, Marcus Chen. Mrs. Anderson. He has 3 outstanding warrants in Nevada for fraud-related charges. And Derek Chen?" She paused, watching my face. "That's not even his real name. His actual name is Derek Huang. He's Marcus's former college roommate. They've been running investment scams together for 6 years." The coffee shop suddenly felt too bright, too loud. My nephew Marcus, my sister Linda's son, the boy I'd watched grow up, who'd cried at George's funeral, who'd been calling me every single day asking how I was doing, who'd suggested so helpfully that I needed professional financial guidance now that I was alone. "How do you know all this?" My voice came out hoarse. "After my mom got scammed, I became obsessed with learning how these schemes work. I take online classes about financial fraud. When I saw the expired license, I did deeper digging." Sophia pulled out more papers. "Look at this. This is the company registration for Chen Financial Services. It was only registered 3 weeks ago. The address listed is a UPS store mailbox. And these papers you were about to sign? She pointed to copies she'd somehow made. This isn't a standard investment management agreement. You weren't just giving them power of attorney over your investments. You were signing over full ownership of your house. Look at Clause 17, Section C. I found the section, buried in legal language. My stomach dropped. Transfer of primary residence deed to Chen Financial Services LLC in exchange for lifetime income annuity payments. The words swam before my eyes. Mrs. Anderson, there is no annuity. Once you sign this, they take your house, sell it, and disappear. The company will declare bankruptcy. You'll have nothing. Sophia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. My mom signed something almost identical. She's living in my studio apartment now because she lost her condo. She's 63 years old and working as a grocery store cashier because she has no retirement left. I sat back against the booth, the leather cold against my back. Why? The question came out as barely a whisper. Why would Marcus do this to me? Linda would be devastated. He's family. According to Nevada court records, Marcus Chen owes over $800,000 to various casinos. He's also been sued 3 times for fraudulent business practices. He's desperate, Mrs. Anderson. And desperate people do terrible things, even to family. Sophia glanced at her phone. It's been 9 minutes. They're going to wonder where you are. What should I do? I heard myself ask, feeling suddenly ancient and fragile in a way I hadn't since George died. Do you have a lawyer? Anyone you trust? Sophia asked urgently. I thought of Emma Rodriguez, George's attorney who'd handled his will. Yes, I do. Call her right now. Tell her what's happening. Don't go back in there. Don't let them pressure you. Sophia pushed all the documents toward me. Take these. I made copies. I probably broke a dozen bank policies doing this, but I don't care. You can't sign those papers. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone, but I managed to dial Emma's number. She answered on the second ring, and when I explained, in a voice I barely recognized as my own, what was happening, she said 4 words, "Don't move." I'm coming. She's on her way, I told Sophia, feeling tears start to build behind my eyes. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you. You already did, by listening, Sophia said softly. My mom didn't. The bank teller tried to warn her, and she got offended, thought the woman was being condescending because of her accent. She signed anyway. She wiped at her own eyes. You have to go back in there and stall until your lawyer arrives. Can you do that? Could I? Face my nephew, who I'd watched take his first steps, who I'd applauded at his high school graduation, knowing he'd been planning to rob me of everything George and I had built over 43 years of marriage? I can do that, I said, hearing steel in my voice I didn't know I still had. When I walked back into the bank 20 minutes later, Marcus was standing, his face tight with barely concealed anger. Aunt Helen, are you all right? You were gone so long. I'm fine, sweetheart, I said, letting the endearment roll off my tongue like poison. I just started feeling a bit dizzy. Low blood sugar, probably. I think I need to reschedule. I'm not feeling quite up to signing important documents today. But Aunt Helen, everything's arranged. Derek worked so hard on these papers. We can't just tills. His voice had an edge to it now, the mask slipping slightly. I said I need to reschedule. I met his eyes, and for the first time, I really looked at him. There was something there. Something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before, or maybe had never let myself see. I'll call you later this week. How about I drive you home? We can talk about this. Marcus reached for my elbow, his grip just a bit too tight. That won't be necessary. Emma Rodriguez's voice cut through the bank lobby like a knife. She was walking toward us in her sharp suit, her briefcase in hand, and she looked like an avenging angel. Mrs. Anderson has retained my services to review all documentation before any signatures occur. I'm sure you understand, Mr. Chen, that a transaction of this magnitude requires proper legal counsel. I watched the blood drain from Marcus's face. I didn't realize Aunt Helen was bringing a lawyer. There's really no need. Oh, I think there's every need, Emma said coolly. In fact, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you and Mr. Derek Chen, or should I say Mr. Derek Huang? We have quite a bit to discuss. including his expired financial advisor's license and the nature of this rather unusual property transfer agreement. Marcus took a step back, and I saw it, the moment of calculation in his eyes. Fight or flight? I don't know what you're talking about. Derek Chen is completely legitimate. Mr. Chen, I'm going to stop you right there before you add more lies to what I suspect is already going to be an extensive investigation. Emma placed her briefcase on the counter with a decisive thud. Mrs. Anderson will not be signing anything today. In fact, Mrs. Anderson will be filing a report with the police about attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person, which, as you may or may not know, is a felony in this state. Aunt Helen, you can't seriously believe Marcus turned to me, his face shifting into a pleading expression that once would have melted my heart. It's me. It's Marcus. I'm trying to help you. This lawyer is probably just trying to milk you for fees, turning you against your own family. And there it was. The manipulation laid bare, trying to make me doubt myself, doubt Emma, doubt my own judgment, making me feel foolish and paranoid for questioning him. The nephew who has 3 outstanding warrants in Nevada? I said quietly, watching his face go white. The nephew who introduced me to a fake financial advisor with an expired license? That nephew? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can explain. Save it for the police, Emma said. Mrs. Anderson, let's go. I have a call in to Detective Morrison at the Financial Crimes Unit. As I walked out of that bank, my legs shaking but my head held high, I heard Marcus behind us, his voice rising. You're making a mistake. That house should be mine anyway. You don't even have kids. I'm family. I deserve. His voice cut off abruptly, probably because the bank security guard had intervened. I didn't turn around. I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, until I was safely in Emma's car. You did the right thing, Emma said gently as she pulled out of the parking lot. I know that was incredibly hard. That young woman at the bank, I said, my voice cracking. Sophia. She saved me. If she hadn't warned me. Then we need to make sure the bank knows what she did, Emma replied. And we need to move quickly. I want to freeze your accounts, change all your passwords, and get a restraining order filed before close of business today. The next 3 weeks were a blur of police reports, lawyer meetings, and evidence gathering. Detective Morrison, a patient woman in her 40s who'd seen far too many cases like mine, walked me through everything they found. Derek Huang and Marcus Chen had been running this scam across 3 states. They targeted recent widows and widowers, building trust through family connections or church groups, then swooping in with their fake financial planning company. They'd successfully stolen property and assets from 9 other victims before someone finally had the courage to press charges. That someone was me. You should know, Detective Morrison told me during one of our meetings, that when we searched Marcus's apartment, we found a whole file on you. He'd been planning this for over a year, waiting for your husband to pass away. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but you need to understand the level of premeditation here. I thought about that. About Marcus at George's funeral, his arm around my shoulders, telling me I wouldn't have to face the future alone, all while planning to take everything. My sister, I said quietly. Linda, does she know? We contacted her. She's not taking it well. She's insisting her son would never do this, that there must be some mistake. Detective Morrison's face was sympathetic. It's common for families to be in denial. But Mrs. Anderson, the evidence is overwhelming. We have recordings of phone calls between Marcus and Derek planning the whole thing. We have the fake documents. We have testimony from other victims. Will they go to jail? If you're willing to testify, yes. Both of them. We're looking at multiple felony counts. Fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, practicing without a license. They're looking at significant prison time. I thought about Sophia, whose mother had lost everything because no one would listen to warnings. I thought about the 9 other victims who'd been too ashamed or too scared to come forward. I thought about George, who'd worked his whole life so we could have security in our old age. I'll testify, I said firmly. Tell me when and where. The trial took place 6 months later. I sat in that courtroom, with Emma beside me and Sophia sitting in the gallery behind me for moral support, and I told my story. I watched Marcus avoid my eyes, watched his expensive defense attorney try to paint me as a confused old woman who'd misunderstood a legitimate business transaction. But then Sophia testified about the expired license, about the fake company registration. Other victims came forward with identical stories. Detective Morrison presented the recorded phone calls, and we all heard Marcus and Derek laughing about how easy it was to manipulate grief-addled old people. When the jury came back with guilty verdicts on all counts, I felt something loosen in my chest that had been tight since that day in the bank. Marcus got 8 years. Derek got 12, since he had prior convictions. My sister Linda still won't speak to me. She calls me vindictive, says I destroyed her son's life out of spite. Maybe someday she'll understand that I didn't destroy Marcus, he destroyed himself. But I've made peace with the fact that she may never forgive me for sending her son to prison. What I haven't made peace with, what I'll never make peace with, is how close I came to signing those papers. How easily I believed the lie, because it was wrapped in a familiar face and spoken with concern in his voice. 3 months after the trial, I did something I'd been thinking about for a while. I went back to First National Bank and asked to speak with the manager. I requested that Sophia be present. I owe you my house, my security, probably my life, I told her, while the manager looked on in confusion. I'd brought a check. This is a reward. It's not nearly enough for what you did, but it's what I can afford. $25,000. Sophia's eyes went wide. Mrs. Anderson, I can't accept that. I just did what anyone should do. But most people wouldn't, I interrupted gently. Most people would mind their own business. You risked your job, your career, to warn a stranger. Your mother didn't receive that warning when she needed it, but you made sure I did. Please, take it. Go back to school full-time. Study financial fraud if that's what you want, or study anything else. But know that you changed my life. She took the check with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. The bank manager, who'd finally been briefed on what happened, quietly mentioned that the bank was looking to create a new position in their fraud prevention department. He asked Sophia if she'd be interested in applying. 6 months later, she got the job. As for me, I'm still in my house. The house that George and I chose together 30 years ago. The garden he planted is blooming, and I tend it every morning, talking to him like he's still here. Maybe in some way, he is. Maybe he sent Sophia to me that day, one last way of taking care of me. I think about that morning often, about how close I came to losing everything because I was lonely and grieving and wanted so badly to believe that someone cared. About how a young woman who could have looked the other way chose instead to risk everything to save a stranger. People ask me sometimes if I'm bitter about Marcus. The truth is, I'm sad. Sad for the little boy he used to be. Sad for my sister who lost her son to his own greed. Sad for all the victims he hurt. But bitter? No, because that morning taught me something important. It taught me that even when the people who should protect you betray you, there are still good people in the world. People like Sophia, who see wrong and refuse to look away. People like Emma, who drop everything to help. People like Detective Morrison, who fight for justice for victims no one else cares about. It taught me that my instincts are still good, that I'm not too old or too confused to know when something's wrong. It taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And it taught me that sometimes the person who saves your life is someone you never expected, someone who has every reason to stay silent but chooses to speak up anyway. I called Sophia last week, checking in like I do every month now. She's thriving in her new position, has caught 2 more scams before they could hurt anyone. Her mother is living with her still, but they're saving for a place together. Mrs. Anderson, she said, I've been meaning to ask you something. Would you consider speaking to my fraud prevention class? Sharing your story? A lot of victims don't want to talk about what happened, but I think hearing from someone who stopped a scam because they listened to a warning, it could help so many people. I thought about it, about standing in front of strangers and admitting how close I came to losing everything, about exposing my family's shame, my nephew's crimes, my own vulnerability. I'll do it, I said. If it helps one person avoid what I went through, if it encourages one more person to speak up when they see something wrong, then it's worth it. Because that's what I learned that Tuesday morning in the bank when a young woman whispered, "Please don't sign those papers." I learned that warnings, even from unexpected sources, are worth listening to. That family isn't always who you think it is. That courage sometimes looks like a 26-year-old bank teller risking her job to save a stranger. And I learned that it's never too late to trust your gut, to ask for help, to stand up and say no, even when everyone around you is telling you you're wrong. George used to say that the universe puts people in our path when we need them most. I didn't believe in that kind of thing before. But after everything that happened, after Sophia appeared at exactly the moment I needed saving, I think maybe he was right. Maybe the universe, or George, or just plain luck, puts guardian angels in our path. Sometimes they look like polished professionals, and sometimes they look like terrified young bank tellers who refuse to watch history repeat itself. I know which kind saved me, and I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful that on that Tuesday morning, when it mattered most, I listened. Trust your gut, listen to warnings, even from unlikely sources, and never ever sign anything when someone's rushing you or making you feel foolish for asking questions. Because sometimes, that moment of doubt, that whisper of warning, that gut feeling that something's wrong, is the only thing standing between you and losing everything. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope you never need to use this lesson. But if you do, I hope you'll remember, there are still good people in the world. And sometimes, they show up exactly when you need them most.